The video which you are about to see is the account of the tragedy that befell one retired content creator. In August 2023, a new video game was released based on his favorite horror franchise. It was all the more tragic that he was retired, but had he experienced a very long career, he wouldn't have expected to see as much of the mad and macabre as he witnessed. For him, an often overly used, poorly parodied narration turned into an intro. He wasn't afraid to ask the difficult questions. Who created such a disturbing game? Where are my keys? Did I leave the oven on? Why did I have so much trouble in the 4th grade? The events that led to that game's release will go down in the annals of video game history. Turn the lights down and the volume up for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome all. I am Mullet Mike, bringing you creepy gaming. Considered by many as one of the most influential horror series of all time, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has terrified audiences for nearly 50 years. On August 18, 2023, Gun Media and Sumo Nottingham released the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for PC and current-gen consoles. In this edition of Creepy Gaming, we'll briefly discuss the history of the franchise, the true story it's based on, Leatherface's previous iterations and games, the newest release by Gun Media, creepy Easter eggs, and finally the cultural impact the series has had. Grab some popcorn, folks, because I got a lot to say. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was originally conceived by Texas natives Tobe Hooper and Kim Hinkle. Hooper, an up-and-coming filmmaker, wanted to leave his mark on the horror genre, and I would say that he did. With a small cast and crew and a $140,000 budget, this humble little independent film turned into an iconic horror masterpiece that is highly regarded today. The film followed Sally Hardesty and her group of friends as they go visit her grandfather's old farm. Along the way, they encounter Leatherface, a chainsaw-wielding butcher with a mask made of human skin, and his sadistic, cannibalistic family. Growing up in a rural area, this film terrified me because it didn't seem too far-fetched that something like this could actually happen. As a matter of fact, both the original film and the game advertise based on actual events. I would be remiss not to mention that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on a true story, at least parts of it. I'm sure most of you know this by now, but I feel obligated to touch on this before we go any further. The events of the film were based on Ed Gein and his crimes in Plainfield, Wisconsin in the 1950s. Ed Gein made masks from his victims' faces. He was a grave robber and made furniture from human remains. Those aspects were true. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was just one of many films inspired by Ed Gein's crimes. Others include Psycho and Silence of the Lambs. "1983 saw Leatherface's first appearance in a game with Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the Atari 2600. Granted, simple gameplay by today's standards, this title was controversial during its release. What stood out about this Texas Chainsaw Massacre compared to other similar Atari horror games at the time is that you played as Leatherface. Usually, in games like Halloween, for example, you're a victim trying to survive. Not in this game, you get the chainsaw. This foreshadows what's to come. Leatherface also made an appearance in the controversial, but for other reasons, game Dead by Daylight, but perhaps that's another discussion for another time. Years in the making, Gun Media, the same publishers of 2017's critically acclaimed Friday the 13th game, have finally brought us 2023's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they did not disappoint. Just like their Friday the 13th game, Gun Media showed their love and dedication to the franchise by recreating every last detail of the original film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an asymmetrical horror game, much like Dead by Daylight and Evil Dead. But unlike these titles, which feature one killer versus a plethora of survivors, Texas Chainsaw features 3v4. That's right, 3 family members versus 4 victims. This completely changes the dynamic. The gameplay is pretty straightforward. As a victim, you utilize stealth and proficiency to unlock doors to escape the family's twisted clutches. Each victim comes complete with their own attributes and perks. Some, like Connie, have high levels of proficiency, which helps when unlocking doors. Others have strength, endurance, or stealth to help sneak past family members. As the family, you use your chosen family member's abilities to hunt down potential survivors. Leatherface can destroy obstructions or block pathways.
Look what your brother did to that dog!
The hitchhiker can set traps. The cook can listen for victims. Johnny uses his hunting ability while Sissy uses poisons. More on those two in a bit. The story follows Ana Flores and her group of friends as they search for her missing sister, college student Maria Flores. The game takes place in April of 1973. This is set just a few months before the events of the original film in August 1973. Being an online-only asymmetrical horror game, that's about all you get for a story, which is pretty status quo. One of the strengths of the game and the franchise as a whole is that it's riddled with lore. The victims are about what you would expect, but with their own backstories. Same can be said about the Sawyer family. Or is it the Slaughter family? That's a debate for another time, but the cannibalistic family comes complete with their own perks and individualized attributes as well. The family is based on Tobe Hooper's original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. As of right now, there are no other family members from other movies. Yet. Fingers crossed for future DLC. The family consists of Leatherface and his supposed brothers, the hitchhiker and the cook. In addition to the original family, there are 2 new members created just for the game that weren't featured in the original film. This would be Johnny and Sissy. Johnny was raised by a woman named Nancy, who apparently is another new playable family member we will hopefully be getting soon. According to Johnny's backstory, he is the closest thing to a true serial killer the family has. It goes on to say, in a family full of unpredictable maniacs, Johnny is the most unpredictable of all. So that's saying something.
I don't feel safe.
Johnny uses his hunt ability to track down victims, making him a useful addition to the family. Then we have Sissy. I like having Sissy as an addition to the family because it feels like she fits right in. She's a drifter with a gypsy soul and former cult member. More on that later. Sissy can fit through tight spaces as she skips around barefooted, singing lullabies, all while trying to cut you up. And last, but definitely not least, is good old Grandpa. He was the greatest killer there ever was. Grandpa is not a playable character, but rather an NPC that family members feed each match to help locate victims. The family has always been a fascinating part of the Texas Chainsaw franchise, so I appreciate the attention to detail that was spent on them. This entire game is a giant love letter to the franchise. Easter eggs and references are scattered all throughout this title. The map locations, for now anyways, are the classic farmhouse, gas station, and slaughterhouse. The latter of which was barely seen in the movie, more or less alluded to. The family house and gas station are near perfect recreations of these iconic sets. I almost wish the game had a walkthrough mode where I could just look around and appreciate each little detail. The family house features the bone furniture, the infamous dinner table, caged poultry, the hook that haunted our nightmares for generations, the fields of sunflowers, the red generators, all the way down to the iconic driveway have all been painstakingly recreated out of love. I am a big fan of atmosphere, and this game recreates the original film's tone and feel. Speaking of which, I love the old news reports that are played in between matches. They just give off such creepy vibes that you can't help but feel that most of the crimes being reported on had to be tied into the family in some way.
New details have emerged in the grisly string of murders that littered Interstate 40 during 1971 and 72. Known only as the Terror of I-40, authorities say an unidentified woman spent years hitchhiking from Texas to California, where she viciously murdered several truck drivers and 3 other young women along the route. Billy Jasper of Winslow, Arizona, claims he likely had an encounter with the assailant at his home over a year ago. Jasper says a young woman in her 20s approached his home seeking water and food, but after a few minutes the woman allegedly became irate with Mr. Jasper's line of questioning. Eventually, the unidentified female started to attack Jasper with a razor blade. He was able to defend himself until the attacker eventually fled. Jasper's description of the female is consistent with multiple reports from New Mexico, Texas, and California, especially cities close to the I-40 corridor. Authorities are unsure why Jasper waited so long to come forward with these details. Another disturbance was reported at the abandoned slaughterhouse outside of Hills Prairie. Deputies responded to a caller reporting loud noises from the dilapidated facility after midnight. Police investigated the site and found evidence of trespassing and minor equipment theft, but suspect it is merely the work of local vandals.
Speaking of the family, another noteworthy nod I'd like to mention is that Leatherface's mocap actor is none other than Kane Hodder. He's a well-known stuntman who was one of the men who played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He was most notably known as playing Jason Voorhees in several Friday the 13th films, as well as the game. Also, original Hitchhiker actor Edwin Neal reprises his role for the voice work in this game. Kim Hinkle, one of the co-creators of the series, was also involved with the game as well. Many hardcore fans noticed his name used predominantly on the gas station map. And while I haven't seen it confirmed, I can't help but feel that H&H Slaughterhouse can't stand for anything else other than Hooper and Hinkle. Now, a lot of my longtime viewers enjoy creepy Easter eggs. While this title's Easter eggs are more or less references, I still discovered one developer Easter egg that I found fascinatingly creepy.
For always is always forever, 'cause one is one is one. Look inside yourself or your father. All is one, all is none, all is none, none is one.
Always is always forever, 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 forever.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't just one of the best horror films of all time, it's probably my favorite movie ever. I will watch it anytime, anywhere. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is, or if I just catch it halfway through, I will watch it. This game is a loving tribute to the original film, made with the same care as the aforementioned Friday the 13th game. Overall, this title is beautiful. The sun setting over the farm, the big Texas skies, the fields of sunflowers. It's juxtaposed to the gritty, blood-smattered gore throughout the rest of the game. It plays well. I had a few bugs and a few matches dropped, but nothing too bad. The gameplay is fun, and I'll admit, playing as a victim, knowing one of the family members is close by, is terrifying. I'll be honest, because the game is repetitive in nature as an online-only asymmetrical horror game, I thought I'd be tired of it a lot sooner, but I've noticed how I play has evolved. I haven't gotten tired of it yet. Plus, with the upcoming addition of playable characters, skins, and maps, I know it'll keep it fresh. If I have one complaint about the game, it would simply be the absence of an offline mode against bots. That's it. Other than that, it's a solid game and a must-play for any horror enthusiast. Because of the tension one feels while playing and the overall beautiful attention to detail, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has done more than enough to forever go down in creepy gaming history. That's gonna do it for me today, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this creepy gaming special. I just wanted to ring in your spooky season right. I've missed you guys. I am Mullet Mike saying keep it spooky, stay creepy. Thanks for watching. Peace.